Well, hello everybody. I hope you're all doing great. Welcome to another vlog. Now then, for those of you that are new to my channel and you don't know who I am, my name is Adam Gibbs. I was going to say landscape photographer, but I'm more of a nature photographer, all-round nature photographer, living on Vancouver Island in British Columbia. Been a photographer for 30 years, believe it or not. And today we're down on the west coast of Vancouver Island near the little hamlet of Port Renfrew. Now then, when we started driving this morning from the east coast, it was quite foggy, so we had high hopes. We got mid-island and it was nice and sunny, so I thought, great, there's going to be some great light on the coast this evening. Got to the coast and the light is non-existent. There's a sliver of light in the background there towards the Olympic Peninsula. But that's about it. Otherwise, it's pretty flat today. So what I've decided to do is slap on a really long lens. Now with the GFX 100S, the longest lens that you can get is a 1-200. Actually, that's not true. There's a 250. I don't own the 250, so I have the 1-200. And then I put a 1.4 teleconverter on that. And I'm concentrating on, you can just see way in the distance there, there's a sliver of light on the Olympic Mountains. So I'm zoomed in on that, and then I put on a case ND filter to really drag out the shutter speed and get some smooth water in the foreground with the rocks. I might have to do a bit of Photoshop work on this one because it is very flat. So I'll probably have to add some contrast, darken the sky and fiddle with the foreground. But I think it's not a bad start to the evening. I think this will probably be the first and last photograph of this evening, so I have high hopes for tomorrow. I'm out here with my good friend Barnham, and I'm also here with Gavin and Amanda and my friend Colin. I'm not sure where they've gone. They actually got here before us, so we just kind of saw them in the distance and then they disappeared, but I'm sure we'll catch up with them. So anyway, here are the first shots of this trip, and hopefully we have a couple more to show you from this little adventure. For this photograph and the next photograph, I ended up combining two images for each of them. And the reason why I did that is because some of the photographs would have lots of definition in the rocks, or too much definition, and then other images would have hardly any definition because there was too much misty water. I really enjoy using the case ND filters, but sometimes they're a little bit hard to control because it really depends on your shutter speed, and in this case I use perhaps too slow a shutter speed. So by combining some images with lots of definition in the rocks and another image with hardly any definition, I was able to control where I wanted that misty water effect and where I didn't want it. Good morning, folks. Yes, I've come back down to Fairy Lake. I think I come here at least, or do a vlog here at least once a year. Conditions of this morning are absolutely beautiful. As you can see, we have a lot of fog and the infamous Fairy Lake tree. And the nice thing is right now is I think that the tide is out, so the tree's sticking up quite a bit. I took a shot, I think a couple of years ago, that I really loved. We had conditions very similar to this, but the tree was quite submerged. So even though I really love the image, I think the conditions for the tree anyway right now are better. Just waiting for hopefully a little bit of sun to come through. And of course the fog is coming in and out, so now and then you'll see more of these trees in the background, and then other times not so much. Yeah, it's spectacular. So I'm still here with Gavin and Brian and Colin, and Brian's hiding in the trees there. I think what he's trying to do is, because we're on the side of the road here, there is quite a lot of shrubbery along the side, and it's hard to get a good clear view. There's only a couple of spots, but if you go up into the woods, or you can find a place up in the woods there, you can get more of an elevated view, so you don't get all this this brush in the way. So I'm guessing that Brian is just trying to isolate the tree just on its own. What I'm trying to do is, I love the isolated tree, or the fairy lake tree, but I also love the forest, or a hint of the forest in the background. Just gives it a bit of a sense of place. And I think Gavin is down by the lake shore, so he's shooting across at it, and it's a good time to do that, because when there isn't any fog, you get that forest in the background and it just looks too busy. But when there's fog like this, of course it eliminates it, so it really isolates it. Now the tree itself probably won't get any direct light, but you do get some nice light in the background sometimes, so that's kind of what we're waiting for. I've photographed this tree dozens of times over the years, and I really do enjoy photographing it. Unfortunately, though, it is getting more and more difficult to come up with something a little original. Because it is isolated in the middle of a lake, you're pretty much relying on the environment around it and what the light is doing. So for this trip, I decided to just put the tree in complete isolation, and rather than zoom in on the stump and the tree coming out of the lake, I went as wide as I possibly could without getting other foliage in the frame. And I really quite like the effect that's resulted from using a wider lens. Eventually we did get a little bit of light on the tree, and the fog stuck around for quite some time. So I was quite happy with this image. It really does show the isolation. So we're still here. We haven't left yet. I went back to get the van because, I figured, well, we're done here now. And as I'm getting the van, I can see Brian waving frantically to me to come over. And of course, the fog kind of cleared a little bit, and it started to look really quite nice. So I parked the van, and then I could hear Brian swearing because there was some kind of critter ruining the reflection, and then the critter climbed up on the log, and it was a martin. And so Brian managed to get a shot of the martin kind of poking his head around the corner of the log there, but I wasn't set up because I was in my van. But anyway, yeah, it was really nice, and then he just swam back. The fog at the end of the lake is just absolutely spectacular, especially with the tree with the moss hanging on it. So I'm just going to concentrate on that more than the tree with the stump, because it's just gorgeous down there. So yeah, that's what I'm concentrating on right now. Yeah, it's really great conditions. Right, after that brilliant session this morning, we've come down to an area called Sombrio Beach, which is very popular with surfers. And the surf is, well, it was really good when we first got here, and it's slowly died down a little bit. Now, originally I'd come to photograph a waterfall here that's in somewhat of a canyon, and I've photographed it a number of times and made a number of videos. And if you haven't seen any of those videos, I'll be sure to leave a link up in the corner here. But what I really wanted to do was take a photograph of the canyon with sunlight streaming through. You get some nice glows in there, especially when there's quite a bit of water flowing at the end there. This time of year, the sun is far enough to the west that, or the northwest, that it gets more direct sunlight into the canyon, so you're more likely to get those beams of light. Problem is that this time of year on the west coast it's often raining, so it's very hard to get a bright sunny day. Anyway, a long story short, the sun is kind of coming in and out, but it's not great for that shot, so I've decided to look for other things. And what I've ended up doing is taking photographs or close-ups of some of these bark patterns. Now, unfortunately, with the lenses that I have for the GFX 100, they don't focus that close. Right now I have the 45 to 100, but luckily I have an extension tube in my bag, so I've put that on, so I'm able to get quite a bit closer to the composition and still focus. And what I found is some knots here in the roots of this old tree that's washed up on the shoreline here. So I'm just playing around with that. The great thing about abstracts like this is that you don't have to have a level camera. You can twist your camera any way you want because it's an abstract, so it's just a pattern. So there's a couple of things that you might want to keep in mind when you're doing stuff like this, because of course as you get closer and closer to your subject, your depth of field gets shallower and shallower, and unless you focus stack, then you want to pay attention to where your camera is in relationship to your subject matter. And what I mean by that is, with this subject here, it's quite flat, so ideally, if you can, try and put the film plane or the sensor plane parallel to your subject matter. So if your subject is on a 45-degree angle, then if you can get your camera to be parallel to that angle or that subject, then you don't have to stop down as much, or if you do stop down, you can make sure that everything is in sharp focus. If you are at say a 90-degree angle to say a subject that's at a 45-degree angle, then of course it's going to be really hard to get everything in sharp focus unless you focus stack. So in this case, because it's quite flat and it's just at a slight off to 90, I've just made sure that my camera is more or less at the same angle, so that when I do stop down f16, pretty much everything will be in sharp focus. Now, right now the sun is out, it's quite harsh, so what I'm doing is I'm taking some shots in direct sunlight and then some where I put my own shadow over the subject so the light is more subdued. Both look quite good, but I think the subdued ones are going to look better. But sometimes harsher light will bring out those textures, so we'll see how it goes. Wow, what an absolutely gorgeous evening. The sun is just going down. Went into the canyon and the sun did come out, so I was able to get a couple of shots with some light beams, but of course we were taking it in turns, and of course when I went in, the sun went behind a cloud and I kind of lost the sunbeams, but I think I got a decent shot. And then Gavin and Colin went in, but now we're just taking photographs of the last light on these rocks over here. It's just beautiful. So again, I'm using a 10-stop ND filter, slowing the shutter speed down, smoothing out the water a little bit. If I have time, I'll take some with a faster shutter speed, see if I can get some textures in there. Just beautiful. Anyway, thank you ever so much for watching this week's video. I really appreciate it. If you enjoyed it, be sure to give me the old thumbs up. It's much appreciated. And well, until next week, stay tuned, all right? Thanks very much. Bye-bye.